Alright, so for our second video, I tried to find some funny math jokes. Turns out there aren't any, so sorry about this. What do you call a square after it's been stepped on by an elephant? A rectangle. What about this one? What did the complementary angle say to the acute angle? Ooh, I like your haircut. And last one. What kind of plants do math teachers like? Geometries. Ooh. Alright. Back to circles. So, same form of equation as yesterday, or the last video. What we're doing here is just being given properties of a circle, be able to write the equation. So they're going to give us the center and the radius, and we have to write the equation, or they're going to tell us where the center is and then a point that it goes through, and we're going to have to find a way to calculate the radius. Then we can write the equation. So just kind of think about that, and just kind of always keep in mind what the equation should look like. Starting off with the easy ones where they're just pretty much just giving us everything we know. So here's H, and here's K, and here's R. So just plugging those in. So if the center is 3, -2, and the radius is 7, remember the more common mistakes is forgetting to square the radius. So x minus h, so x minus 3, and then squared, and always plus, and then y minus -2, so y plus 2, and then squaring that, and then take 7 and square it, which of course is 49. So they start off pretty easy like that. Then the second one's pretty easy as well. Just they give us a radius that's a little funky. We start off with x minus -4, so x plus 4. We square that, and then we add y minus 0, which of course would just be y, and square that. And then we want to take 2 radical 11 and square that. So we just need to make sure we think about what that means. That's 2 radical 11 times 2 radical 11, which is 2 times 2 times radical 11 times radical 11, which of course is 4. And then of course radical 11 times radical 11 is 11, so that's 44. So just think about how you do that, or you can just a little faster. That you square the 2, you get a 4. And you square the radical 11, you get 11. So 4 times 11 being 44. So kind of think about how you would do that in your head. So x plus 4 squared plus y squared equals 44. Pretty easy. And moving to a different type of problem. So they're giving us the center, which is nice, but then it's passing through this other point, and so what we don't know is what R is. So we need to figure that out. So there's a couple different ways to do this. Probably the easiest way is just to use the equation. And so it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And so we're looking for r, which means that we need to know everything else, and we do. We know what h is, and we know what k is. So it's -1, and that's 2. And then this is just saying we need some, any x point that's on the circle and any y point that's on the circle. So our x value being 2, and then our y value being 6, and then we got to make sure that we subtract x minus h and y minus k. So basically it's going to be plugging everything in and solving for r. So we'll do that a little more formally. So our x value being 2, so make sure you're taking the point that's on the circle, or the point that the circle is passing through. So that's the x value there, not the x value of the center. And then minus our x value of our center, which was -1. Square that, plus the y value that's on the circle, the y value that's passing through, so that's 6, minus, and then our k value, which is 2, and square that. That's going to equal r squared. So we add 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 squared is 9. And here we get 6 minus 4, or 6 minus 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. R squared. So of course that's 25 equals r squared. We could go ahead and find r, which of course isn't difficult, but we really don't need to, because the question is really what is r squared, not what's r. So as soon as we know what r squared is, we're ready to go. So make sure you grab your center, not this other point. We don't care about that anymore. So x minus, or so it's minus -1, so plus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared, then r squared was 25. So there's that. Again, you can stop once you know what r squared is, because that's what the equation says, what's r squared, and make sure you use the center, not the point you're passing through when you go to write the equation. Pretty similar problem. IXL starts throwing some fraction at you, but they do kind of give something nice too also when they do that. So it kind of makes some of the math a little bit harder because they throw fractions, but they also kind of give us a little break on something else too. I want to show you what that is. So we're using that same method. We're going to plug. And we know what h and we know what k are, and we are given an x value and a y value, and we're looking for that r squared. So take x, which is -3, and then subtract -3, and square that, plus y, which is 5/2, and then subtract 0. So, I mentioned they were giving us a gift here. So what that gift is that this right here is 0. So if you had noticed earlier that the x values were the same, we would have known that this value here was 0. So, and so it kind of just, those -3's cancel each other out. And so, of course, that just goes to 0. And here on the second part, we got 5/2 minus 0. So there's kind of the other gift, is that this tends to be 0 for these IXL problems. So makes this math easier to do. So 5/2 minus 0, of course, is 5/2, and then 5/2 times 5/2 is 25/4. That would be equal to r squared. So that 0 can go away. So now that we know what r squared is, so again, make sure that you grab the center and not the other point, and then we know what r squared is. So x minus -3, so x plus 3 squared, and then plus, and then y minus 0, which of course is just y squared, and then r squared was 25/4. All right. So don't worry too much about the fraction problems. They, again, tend not to be too bad because the way they word them for you. So the last one, so this is kind of the most complex of the problems, is what they're giving us here, is 2 endpoints of a diameter. Right? So they're not giving us the center, and when you write the equation in the circle. So essentially what we have here is, we know these 2 points are connected by a diameter, and the circle goes through them. That's really rough. And so we need to find that center, since we need it in order to write the circle equation. Okay, so we're going to take those 2 endpoints, and what we're going to do is we're going to find the midpoint of that segment, or figure out where the middle of that is. Because the midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. So you're just averaging those x values and averaging those y values. So in order to find the midpoint, so I'm going to average those x values and average those y values. So I'm going to find the midpoint, or you're going to find the center is another way to think about it. So -1 plus 5. So make sure you're adding here. Over 2, comma, and 3 plus -9 over 2. So C, so -1 plus 5 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then 3 plus -9 is -6. -6 divided by 2 is -3. So there's our center. And now that we have the center and a point that the circle is a path through, which we have 2 points. So essentially you can just say sayonara to one of these points. It doesn't matter which one you get rid of. But we're going to do the method that we just did on the last 2 problems in order to figure out the equation of the circle, because we need to find the radius. Again, there's another way to do this, but this is probably the least amount of work. So the other way is to find the distance between these 2 points, using the distance formula, which would just be more work than this other thing. So again, make sure that this is your h and your k, and then these guys over here, your x and your y. So make sure you put it in the right order. So x minus h, so -1 minus, and h is 2. I need to square that, plus y, which was 3. And then minus k, which was -3. And we need to square that. That will give us r squared. So this gives me -3 squared plus 6 squared equals r squared, which is 9 plus 36, which is r squared. So 45 is r squared. So again, here I want to stop finding r. When I say find r squared, I don't really care what r is. If I try to square root 45, I'm not going to get a nice number. So again, just kind of a double reason to go ahead and realize we need to stop. And then the other thing we need is our center. So here's the 2 things we need in order to finish the problem. So x minus h, so x minus 2 squared plus y minus -3, so y plus 3 squared equals, and r squared was 45, so boom, we're done. So once you are given this problem about 2 endpoints, so first thing you need to do is find the midpoint or the center using the midpoint formula. So x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Okay, averaging those x values, averaging those y values. Find your center. Once you have your center, use it, and then one of the other points, doesn't matter which one, whichever one you feel is easier. Plug that into the circle equation. Use those 4 numbers to solve for r. Once you have r squared, and then the center, you can plug them into the circle equation. So, a little bit more work, but again, in the end, not too bad. So what your assessment here is to go to the IXL Algebra 2 section U4, and again, try to get that 80% or that 100%, and let us know if you have any questions. Have a good day.